please hit that subscribe button.
Hey everybody.
Better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So, fun video here. We're going to take a look once again at what the playoff matchups would be in the first round of the playoffs if the season ended today. Now, I did this video back in December, and it was pretty fun to look at and just see where everyone was at, but obviously a lot has changed over the past couple months as we are now heading into March, the final month of the NHL season. So I wanted to take another look and just see what the playoff matchups would be if the season ended right now today with how the standings are. Now obviously this is a little bit of a pointless video because the season doesn't end today, but it's still a lot of fun to look at, and I love doing this. This will be the last time I do one of these videos this season, as we are now getting down towards the end of the year. Next time I talk about playoff matchups, guys, it's going to be the real playoff matchups, and I'm so excited for that. I cannot wait for the postseason this year. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So before we start looking at the matchups, guys, I just want to quickly remind you to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and give this video a like. Those thumbs up really help out a lot, and both of those things would really be greatly appreciated if you could just make those couple of clicks. So let's get into it here. Playoff matchups if the season ended right now with the way the standings are today. Starting in the Eastern Conference, the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference versus the number 2 wildcard team would be the Boston Bruins versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. These two teams met in the second round last year. It was a great 6-game series that Boston ended up winning, but if they met in the playoffs this year, I think it'd be a really fun series to watch. And you know, we'd see Columbus knocked off the number 1 seed in the Tampa Bay Lightning last season. We'd see if they'd be able to pull something like that off again this year, this time against Boston. I think that'd be an interesting matchup in the East. The number 1 team in the Metro versus the first wild card team in the Eastern Conference would be the Washington Capitals versus the New York Islanders. So great divisional matchup here. This one would be a fun one. The Islanders' defense-first approach versus the Capitals' high-scoring and, you know, very dynamic offense. Then you have, you know, the issues of goaltending on both teams. Goaltending's been a little bit shaky at times for both of these teams. You know, Holtby's not having a great year for Washington. Samsonov's a rookie, so how would he play in his first NHL playoffs? Then on the Islanders, you've got that duo of Varlamov and Greiss, who sometimes are absolutely outstanding, and then other times give up bad goals and are a little bit shaky. That would be a great series, a really fun one to watch. And I'd be all in on Washington playing New York this year. I'd definitely watch those games. The 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic Division right now would be the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, and oh boy, what a series would this be. Talk about scoring. I mean, you have two dynamic offenses here. I think it'd come down to which team would be able to keep the puck out of their own net more, which obviously would lean me towards Tampa Bay. But, man, there would be some goals scored in this series. Two high-powered, dynamic offenses. I think that'd be absolutely a blast to watch in the first round. In the 2-3 matchup in the Metro Division, Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh, the Battle of Pennsylvania. I hope these two teams meet in the first round, because a playoff matchup might be exactly what this rivalry needs to get back going, because honestly the past couple years this rivalry has not been what it has been in the past. It hasn't been nearly as nasty, nearly as intense, and with the level of animosity and hatred that Flyers Penguins is supposed to have. It's really died down the last couple years. I think a playoff series between these two teams would be the perfect thing to get that rivalry back going. So I really hope that they do meet in the first round. Switching over to the Western Conference now. Right now, the number 1 team in the West versus the number 2 wildcard team would be the St. Louis Blues versus the Nashville Predators. Oh boy, what a series would this be. I would love to see this happen, because Nashville, very talented team, but has had a very disappointing season this year. Obviously, they wanted to be competing with St. Louis for the top of that division, not in a wild card position. They're barely in the playoffs right now. fighting for their playoff lives in that wild card position. But if they do get into the playoffs, if they get in, talk about a team with a lot of talent that could be a scary team to face in the first round, especially for a Blues team that won the Stanley Cup last year. And has played so much hockey over the past, year and almost 2 full years now. As we head into the playoffs, I mean that's a lot of hockey. We see going back to back is extremely difficult. Doesn't happen very often. We could get a huge upset in the first round if these two teams met, and I think it'd be a blast of a series between strong division rivals as well. These two teams hate each other. St. Louis and Nashville are, is a very high-end rivalry in the NHL right now. These two teams do not like each other. A playoff series between them, I think, would be extremely physical, extremely fun to watch, and I really kind of hope that it happens. The number 1 team in the Pacific Division right now versus the number 1 wild card in the West, Vegas versus Calgary. This one would be interesting. This would be an interesting, fun series to watch. Obviously, I want Calgary and Edmonton to meet up, whether it's as a 1 and a wild card or whether it's a 2-3 matchup in the Pacific. I want Edmonton and Calgary to meet up, but Calgary and Vegas would be really fun, and that'd be interesting. Obviously, you've got a lot of talent on both of those teams. You've got just two teams that can light it up offensively at times, especially with Vegas's top 6 and then Calgary's top 6, and I just think that'd be a really interesting, fun series. The 2-3 matchup in the Central Division would be Colorado versus Dallas right now. And honestly, as this season's gone along, I'm really starting to think that this is going to be the first-round playoff matchup. This would be absolutely fantastic. Divisional matchup. Obviously, Colorado with those dynamic players like Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. Mikko Rantanen unfortunately injured, but that's maybe he could come back. Although the timetable on that was 8 to 10 weeks, so looking like Rantanen, it's going to be into the playoffs before he could ever come back. Unless something changes on that timetable, which is unfortunate. But they've still got Landeskog. They added Nemesnikov at the trade deadline. Burakovsky's having a really good year. Hopefully Nazem Kadri can be healthy for playoff time. I mean, this could be a really fun series for both of these teams. Dallas, obviously, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Heiskanen, and Klingberg on the back end, and then Dallas being one of the top defensive teams in the league. Can Dallas shut down Colorado's offense? If they can, that's a huge win for Dallas. I mean, lot of great storylines. Really, really interesting matchup if these two teams meet. Would be a lot of fun to watch, and I'd definitely be tuning into some of those games. And finally, the 2-3 matchup right now in the Pacific Division would be Vancouver versus Edmonton. Canadian rivalry, divisional rivalry. Vancouver, obviously making the big moves at the deadline to go out and get Tyler Toffoli, a top-tier goal scorer, a top 6 goal scorer for them. That'd be a huge addition there. Unfortunately, Vancouver's got some important players out of the lineup because of injury, particularly Brock Besser. That hurts. Jacob Markstrom, their goaltender, as well, is missing some time. Hopefully those guys can be healthy come playoff time, because Vancouver's obviously a much better lineup much better team with both of them in the lineup than not. And then Edmonton, they made moves at the deadline as well. More not necessarily going out and getting the big fish at the deadline the way Vancouver went out and got Toffoli, but they got secondary scoring. They added depth. They greatly increased the amount of secondary scoring and goals that they can get throughout that lineup, rather than just focusing on McDavid and Draisaitl. They've got some other guys now that can score. Tyler Ennis, Andreas Athanasiou, both added at the deadline. Mike Green, a veteran defenseman, added to that blue line. Unfortunately, he got injured, but should be back in time for the playoffs, hopefully. Good veteran guy to have on that blue line, which overall is very, very young this season. They made depth secondary scoring moves that really will help this team. So that'd be a really fun matchup to watch. Would not be able to call that one either way. I almost lean towards Edmonton in that series, but man, What a matchup that would be, obviously, and then you have the Canadian rivalry on top of it in the divisional matchup as well. So, yeah, guys, playoffs ended today. That's what we would have. Obviously, the playoffs do not start today, or if the season ended today, if the playoffs started, this is what the matchups would be. Obviously, that's not the case, but it's really, I always have a fun time looking at this and just see what it would be and how excited I would be for the postseason. And let me tell you, if we got these matchups heading into the playoffs, I would be really excited and really happy to watch a lot of these series and watch as much hockey as I could. So in the East right now, we'd have Boston versus Columbus, Washington versus New York Islanders, Tampa Bay versus Toronto, and Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. And in the West, we'd have St. Louis versus Nashville, Vegas versus Calgary, Colorado versus Dallas, and Vancouver versus Edmonton. So we'll see what changes here in the final month or so of the season, a little bit over a month left. Obviously, I do think some things will change. I don't think these are going to be the exact matchups. We still got a decent amount of hockey left, 15 or so games left for a lot of these teams. So things can still change, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the rest of the way in the regular season and see what matchups we actually do get. But it's always fun to go and look at what the matchups would be right now. So with that, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.